On the night of September 26, 1983, one man decided to do nothing. That decision probably kept you alive. His name was Stanislav Petrov. He was a Soviet lieutenant colonel. He was working a night shift he didn't even want, and he is almost certainly the reason you exist right now. You've never heard of him, almost nobody has, and that, somehow, is the most insane part of the whole story. It's 1983. The Cold War is at its absolute tensest. The US and Soviet Union have been pointing nuclear weapons at each other for 30 years like two people in a standoff who've both forgotten why they're angry but are too proud to lower the gun. Just 3 weeks earlier, the Soviet military had shot down a Korean passenger plane that drifted into Soviet airspace, killing 269 people. The world was furious. Tensions were not just high, they were at a level that geopolitical historians describe as, "Oh God, oh God, oh God." Into this atmosphere enter Stanislav Petrov, Lieutenant Colonel, Soviet Air Defense Forces, a man who by all accounts was good at his job, skeptical by nature, and deeply unhappy about being assigned the overnight shift. His job that night was simple. Sit in the Serpukhov 15 bunker outside Moscow, watch the Soviet early warning satellite system, and if the Americans launched nuclear missiles, report it immediately so the Soviet military could launch a counterstrike. That's it. See missiles. Report missiles. Go to nuclear war. Simple job, terrible job. The kind of job where you really hope nothing happens. At 12:15 in the morning, the system screams one missile, launched from the United States, headed for the Soviet Union. The word launch appears on the screen in large red letters. The threat level reads, highest. Every protocol, every procedure, every piece of training Petrov had says, report this up the chain immediately. The military gets the message. They launch back. Mutually assured destruction plays out exactly the way it was designed to. Petrov has roughly a few minutes to make a decision. And then, before he can even process it, the system shows a second missile, then a third, then a fourth, then a fifth. 5 nuclear missiles. Inbound from the United States of America. Every screen in the bunker is screaming. 50 people are staring at Stanislav Petrov, waiting for him to tell them what to do. This is the moment. This is where one man's gut feeling either saves the world or ends it. Petrov looks at the screen, he looks at the data, and something in his brain, some stubborn, skeptical, slightly sleep-deprived part of his engineer's mind, says, this doesn't feel right. Here is his actual reasoning, which is both brilliant and hilarious in equal measure. Point 1. If the Americans were going to start a nuclear war, why would they launch only 5 missiles? The whole point of a first strike is to take out everything at once. 5 missiles is not a nuclear war. 5 missiles is an oversight. Point 2. The satellite system was new. It had bugs. Petrov knew it had bugs. He had personally expressed concerns about it before this shift. The system was, in his professional opinion, not entirely trustworthy. Point 3. Ground radar wasn't confirming anything. The missiles existed on one screen and nowhere else. So Stanislav Petrov, with 50 people watching him, alarms blaring, the fate of human civilization balanced on his next words, picks up the phone to his superiors and says, false alarm. And then he sits there and waits for 23 of the longest minutes in human history to find out if he just saved the world or accidentally ended it. The missiles never came. It was a false alarm, a rare alignment of sunlight hitting clouds at exactly the right angle to fool the satellite sensors into seeing rocket exhaust that wasn't there. A clerical error by the sun. You'd think Petrov would get a medal, a parade, at minimum, a very nice card and a day off. Instead, he got reprimanded because during the crisis, he'd been filling out his log in pencil instead of pen. Procedural violation. Very serious. The Soviet military looked at the man who just prevented nuclear war and said, yes, but the paperwork. He was quietly reassigned, then retired early. Then the whole incident was classified for years. He went home to his apartment, his wife got seriously ill, and he spent the next decade essentially just living quietly. A man who had held the world in his hands and set it down gently, now growing vegetables and watching television. The world didn't find out what he did until 1998, 15 years later, when a retired Soviet colonel wrote about it in a memoir. He was eventually given a small award by a German organization. He received some recognition later in life from international groups. He said in interviews that he didn't feel like a hero. I was just doing my job, he said. He died in 2017. His neighbors didn't know for weeks. Here's what I want you to think about. Every single person alive today, every scientist, artist, parent, child, every person who will ever watch this, exists partly because one tired man on a night shift trusted his gut over a screaming computer. He didn't do anything heroic in the Hollywood sense. He didn't defuse a bomb. He didn't fight anyone. He didn't give a speech. He just paused. In a moment that demanded instant action, he chose to think for 23 minutes instead. The most important thing Stanislav Petrov ever did was the thing he didn't do.